A lot of people in the house. Of course, Adam Butler here with us as always, wildlife biologist, Wildlife Bureau. How are you, sir?
Good to be here, JT.
You've got Major Chris Reed here with us, law enforcement, as always, who joins us.
Yep, good to be here, man.
You're all dressed up today.
I am. Yes, I am. I like to keep you on your toes.
Okay, you make sure I'm behaving. Russ Walsh is here as well. He's the Executive Wildlife Bureau Director, and it's good to see you, Russ.
Good to be here.
And now brought old Scotty Baker over here with us, WMA Habitat Coordinator as well. We're going to talk some dove field prep if we get to it, right?
That's right, JT.
Good to see you, man. Glad you're here. And, of course, as always, I want to remind you that Mississippi Outdoors Radio, brought to you by the Foundation for Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks. Folks, they are the ones that are responsible for archery in schools. They get a license for folks who've just finished their hunter education courses, different things like that, and of course bring you Mississippi Outdoors Radio. Want to start with the situation in the flooding in the Delta. It's pretty unprecedented is a word, I guess, for the length of it. We've seen floods like this before, but this one's just really hanging around.
Yeah. Folks that have property along the river, I think, are used to flooding, but not like this. Not this late into the year, not this extensive. It's certainly
this water came. They've been dealing with it now since, I think Greenville went over flood stage like in November, I believe, on the Mississippi River. And,
right.
And the backwater flooding has been taking place since February that I know of, and it's June.
And, Russ, this has given us it's affecting wildlife, and it's going to do so for a while. There's a lot of concern out of the public. We've heard it. I know y'all have heard it. I know y'all are concerned, as the public is, correct?
Yeah, and like Adam said, when you go back to February, March, maybe even early April, we knew it was bad. We knew it was flooding, but nobody really thought that we would be here on June 17th still talking about the river being above flood stage, well above flood stage, as well as the backwater being as high as it is for this duration. And we're still looking at another couple of months worth of flooding at least. And so our staff has been out and about monitoring things really since this began. And again, every week that goes by, we have these conversations of nobody thought that it was going to be around this long. So certainly, there are animals that are stressed, whether it's just being cooped up in a small area for such a long time, and now we're dealing with nutritional stress because they have depleted the resources, particularly on the white-tailed deer side. They have depleted the resources where they are. Then you have physiological stress, especially with pregnant does. So certainly this long duration is taking its toll on some wildlife.
And, as you said, it's the duration. We've been through floods before. We were all talking about that earlier. We've been through floods before. This is nothing unusual for the Delta, but like we said, this length of it. So what are some of the measures y'all are going to be looking at to try to address the health of the wildlife populations in these flooded areas?
Yeah, so we've had a lot of conversations of late, and let me back up and say this. I think it's important for people to understand. Those that are from that area certainly are familiar, but for those that aren't, that may be listening to us today, this is not just Mississippi River flooding. I mean, this is the Yazoo backwater area that has nearly 500,000 acres underwater, in addition to the Mississippi River being well above flood stage, and so you have a large amount of area that is underwater. So it's not just this is not just a small affair. This is a large amount of land base. So you have a high volume of deer, a high density of deer that is concentrated in certain areas, and then you have all the other animals as well. Raccoons and turkeys and hogs and such. So we're not just talking about deer here. So again, we've been monitoring populations and conducting surveys, if you will, since the start of this. So we're going to continue to do that. We're going to continue to do surveys and check the health of animals over the next several months. But primarily we're going to be working with landowners in that area as we move into the fall. JT, a lot of folks are going to be getting ready for deer season, talking about deer season. As we move into the fall, we're going to be working with landowners to lay out things that we can do to monitor, again, primarily deer. A lot of people want to talk about, but do population surveys, camera surveys, those types of things, and see how this flood is going to impact them for a time to come, because it's easy to see the immediate impacts, but a flood like this can have long-term impacts, and so we need to know what those long-term impacts are going forward from here for a number of years. So we're going to be working with leaseholders and landowners in that area to talk about those things we can do to assess health of these different species going forward for a number of years. So we'll be doing that in the very near future.
You brought up one, and this is just my question here. You talked about hogs, the fact that this was out there. I know hogs are a big concern, nuisance animal. Is this flood? Is this help or hurt the hog population in Mississippi right now?
I think if there is a silver lining to this, it is that it's probably helped reduce hog populations. Certainly. Just from the stress of it, just like with deer, but also it's helped landowners and farmers because of the hogs being concentrated. It's helped trapping efforts. It's helped their eradication efforts. So again, if there is a positive thing to all this flooding, it is that we're probably going to go into the fall with a lot less pigs, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, there's nothing about that. All right, so let's talk, and I'm just going to throw these around to y'all. Let's get with what the department is going to do. Again, with the wildlife populations in these flooded areas, I know supplemental nutrition is something that we talk about a lot when people wanting to do that to feed their herds. Obviously, you can still do that in Mississippi unless you're in CWD management zone. Is that something you're going to be talking that this is going to be addressed with this flooding?
Yeah, so we've gotten a lot of questions about that, and we are in a CWD management zone right where the heart of the backwater flooding is occurring. In the Issaquena and Warren County area, and some of Sharkey and Yazoo counties are impacted as well. But primarily we're going to be looking at Issaquena and Warren counties. And so we've had a lot of questions about, will some type of, supplemental nutrition be allowed? And the answer is yes. We have the animal control permit process that is available to farmers every year. And so through a version of that, we will take applications from landowners or leaseholders in that area, primarily on the mainline Mississippi River levee. So from those that are familiar from that area, from where Highway 465 hits the mainline levee around back north above Eagle Lake area where there's a high concentration of animals, we will be receiving applications and working with landowners there to issue permits to allow supplemental nutrition through mid-September. And so there will be some guidelines there. Obviously, deer are already stressed. They're in poor condition, and so we don't need to exacerbate that. And so it would take some type of supplemental protein, about 16% crude protein pellet or less. No corn will be allowed. That can be one of the worst things that we do. So we will allow protein pellets or possibly even alfalfa hay, which is a good one too. If you can find alfalfa hay, that can be allowed. But we will be working with landowners in that area to allow that option. And the agency also will be working primarily in the Eagle Lake area where there's a high concentration of deer. We'll be working with a foundation to address supplemental nutrition in that area as well.
And so these are all this all has to be done through a permit process,
That's correct?
Because of it being in the CWD zone. Is that why?
Yes, and also because we want to work hand in hand with those landowners. Again, we want to make sure that the right feed is being put out. There are some issues with being the levee because there are certain restrictions on the levee that we don't have anything to do with. We need to make sure that everybody stays in the guidelines that are put forth, whether by the levee board or other entities. And so we want to make sure everybody does this correctly. So that's why we're going through the permit process, not only because we're in the CWD zone, but we want to make sure folks are doing it the right way.
And we continue to talk about flooding with Russ Walsh, the Executive Wildlife Bureau Director, here with us. And we've been talking about the concerns of the wildlife in the populated areas. continuing there with the stress. We talked about supplemental nutrition. What about animal control permits for people that are experiencing this, that may have it right there in front of them? Do they need to go after? Do they need to acquire these? How does that work, Russ?
Yeah, so if you are a landowner or leaseholder, again on the main line, Mississippi River levee along through that area, and you are interested in this, yes, you will need to apply for a permit, and you can call our office to talk with us more about that at 601-432-2199, and we will walk you through that process. And again, we want to work with landowners and leaseholders up and down this region to help them with this, but again, to make sure we all are doing this in the correct fashion.
So, are these like, when we talk about, are these like a depredation permit, or is this different?
No, this is simply a supplemental nutrition permit. We will issue that permit so that you can
Okay.
feed in this area.
This is not about. Not about or taking them.
This is about again helping their diet.
I understand. All right, what else are you guys going to do as far as the department's concerned?
Primarily, right now, that is it. Certainly, like I said, we'll be working with landowners and leaseholders in the future to outline steps to understand how this has affected populations long term. And right now, there's no discussion of changing the season or altering bag limits in any way. We'll try to do that with landowners and leaseholders in that area on a case-by-case basis as we move through the deer season.
Major Reed, you talked also about boating and different things like that in these areas. I know you wanted to touch on that for just a second, right?
Yeah, again, nothing is, I think we've kind of established the fact that the water's been here and it hasn't changed, and that leads us to the regulation that still applies on those bodies of water. For boating access, it's a dead slow, no wake. Another issue, people, they've been doing a pretty good job of staying away, but curiosity is within all of us, and people, they may not have any bad intent when they go, but I know I've seen pictures, I heard comments of deer that they hate it for them. They're swimming out back away from the levee, and there's nowhere for them to go. And the case that we're dealing with here is the stay away from the levee, because the reason the deer are swimming out to where they have nowhere to go is because the person is up there taking pictures and riding up down the levee, looking at the deer, looking at the flood, and they're doing more harm than good. And so be mindful of that. Just stay away from it. And it's not authorized to be up there. And so the boating is restricted, as well as riding around looking on the levee. And we are patrolling that stuff to protect the animals that are stranded and they have nowhere to go.
And we definitely want people to understand how important this is. I mean, like you said, just because they're on a levee and they don't have anywhere to go, they haven't lost their fear of humans. They don't want that's almost, you could probably get a ticket for harassment, couldn't you? Or
yeah, I mean, it's that answer couldn't be given out just in a blanket statement. But yeah, there's cases that have been made where people that have been doing more harm than good. So it's always just stay away from it, leave them alone. They're exhausted. They need to be.
JT, let me say this: I've been over there on multiple occasions now, and on the levee area, deer they're used to seeing vehicles now because they've been pushed up along the levee area for months now. They're used to seeing vehicles come by, but even today, if you drive over there and you come up on a group of deer, they're likely to run a mile along beside your truck down the levee because that's in their nature. DNA. They want to get away. And so after day of seeing vehicles, they're still afraid of humans and vehicles. And so the more that you stress them, the worse it's going to be for them. So
And I think it goes back to this, is back to what we always say when we get into a disaster like this: stay the heck out of there. If you haven't got any business in there, you're not officially supposed to be there. Stay the heck out of there, and that's what it all boils down to. Anytime, everybody wants to go look and see. After the tornado hit, somebody wants to go look and see, and that's the worst thing that they can do. It just exacerbates the whole situation and makes it worse. A good question. Someone said, "What's this going to do to CWD, and how is this going to affect it?" And I guess probably the short answer would probably be, "Don't know yet." Do you?
That's right. Certainly, when you have a concentration of deer like this for this long a time, it is not good. And could it allow the further spread of CWD? Yes, if there are infected deer in this area, but we certainly won't know that until we monitor further. And this is. Again, as we move into the deer season here in a few short months, we'll be ramping our monitoring efforts up again, and so we need the assistance from hunters. We need you to submit those samples so that we can know that whether or not the flooding has exacerbated the CWD situation.
Well, and it's going to be one of those things. New bag limits, different things like that came out. That all got official, right? Adam, is that right? Everything was officially done?
Yeah, I think at this point, all of our seasons have been officially set. So, we're working to get the outdoor digest and stuff like that out. But
yeah, the goal is to get it out by August.
Right.
The
historically, migratory bird stuff didn't get set till later on in the summer, but we went away from that a couple of years ago, so everything's already ready.
Well, let's go ahead and just touch on some migratory birds, and let's get started on that with Scott Baker here with us. When does dove season open up, brother?
This year it's going to open up September the 1st, which is a Sunday. And anytime it opens on a Sunday, it always kind of puts us in a quandary. But when it has, we open it up at 2 o'clock, and that's going to be the same as this year, September 1st, which is a Sunday for both north and south zones at 2 o'clock p.m.
And to clarify that, we can't open a migratory bird season in August. So it has to be September 1st or later. That's the federal framework. So September the 1st is the earliest we can open it, and it just so happens that this year September 1st is a Sunday. So we generally try not to open seasons on Sundays, but dove season being such a big social thing, we're going to
let everybody get that first hunt in after they go eat lunch after church. So there you go.
That's right. There you go.
All right, and you can do just that. So what can the hunters start doing right now to start prepping for our dove season? In regard to preparing dove fields, we're probably not going to get to all of it before we hit the break, but let's start unpacking it.
That's all right, JT. People do need to be thinking about it, or already been thinking about it. But at this point in the game, sunflowers would still be a possibility for the mature in the second or third season. It would be late to be planting sunflowers now for the opening day, September the 1st hunt. But brown top millet is still an opportunity, and you're right in the wheelhouse for planting brown top millet to have it prepared for the Labor Day opener and then also the later seasons.
Most folks, I think, that are going to do brown top, they try to get it in by the end of June. So you got a little bit of time if you want to think about it.
That's right.
And of course, there's a lot of things that people need to do, and you got to be careful about how you do this. We want people to understand that if you get invited to a hunt, or even you pay for a hunt, it's your responsibility to make sure everything is on the up and up. Because it's not going to go back to the guy; it's going to go back to the hunters if there's something wrong, right?
That's right. Well, and the good thing about planting a dove field is you can legally manipulate a planted crop. Anything you do is legal manipulation for it. What you have to be cautious of is if you harvest that crop, it cannot be redistributed on that field. But if they want to, hunt over a combine field or a brown top millet that's been cut for hay, burned, livestock turned in on it, anything to scatter seed is illegal manipulation for a standing crop.
Okay, so you could literally just bush hog it, right?
Yes, that's right.
And just leave it be?
Yes.
And that would be okay. All right. I just want to make sure we're all right here. I don't want anybody to get in trouble. You know that. And that's
You're not trying to set up anybody?
No, I don't want anybody to get in trouble.
Any of your listeners?
Make sure you got a plug in that gun, too, by the way.
Yeah, and pencils break a lot. Or sticks that people fabricate to make plugs. It'll break.
Put a real plug in there.
Yeah, make sure of that.
Scotty Baker's here with us. Jay says, can I plant 10 acres of corn and hunt dove over it?
He sure can.
Yeah.
After he got the crop up, and if he made a crop come opening weekend of dove season or any time prior to it, if he wanted to go in there and bush hog it to spread the corn, he could, or run a combine through it. It'd be legally manipulated. He just couldn't harvest that crop and put it right back on the field.
Okay. So, I think that's maybe that's what confuses people, Scotty, and maybe that's where I'm confused. So, what you're saying is you can't go out and combine it, and I was going to say, Reed, you probably need to get on this. So, you can't go in and combine it, take the corn, and then go back out there and spread it back out there.
That's right.
Correctamundo.
But you can take the corn and just go with a bush hog, and you should be good. Is that the way I understand this?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And, one thing we always talk about right prior to opening weekend of dove season, a lot of people haven't planted a dove field, and they want to know, what can I do now? And they resort to pouring something out of a bag right prior. And that's when you can get in trouble, is when you start pouring something out of a bag a week or 10 days, 2 weeks prior to opening day, and trying to hunt over it.
Right. And if the gentleman is wanting to establish a cornfield to dove hunt over, he's a little late to try to do that for opening day.
He would,
He
yes.
may get the second or third season in, but he's a little late now.
That's right. He couldn't bring it off in time for opening day, but
Right.
for a second season, possibly.
And with that being said, Major Reed, you guys know the difference. Y'all have seen this. It's nothing new. You didn't fall off the corn truck yesterday.
Well played.
You've seen the people that have tried to manipulate things the illegal way. Y'all know the difference, and it's not hard to tell.
Yeah, we have our methods, and we're out. July, August is really when we get out. We start, checking and doing some patrols and some surveillance of fields to make sure that, however many opportunities exist legally for dove field preparation and getting it right, people are still going to do it illegally, and they're going to pour it out of a sack, and they're going to try to slide it in there, just a little bit of here, a little bit of there, and it's generally they get caught. So yeah, it's a lot of opportunity to do things legally that you cannot do for waterfowl, but you can do for doves, and have a great dove field. Great dove field.
Eric said, I was under the impression you had to turn it over after a harvest. That's
No,
not the case.
you do not.
Okay.
And that is a misconception. We get that call quite often, that you do have to do it, or there's a time period prior to opening day that it has to be done, and that's not the case. One thing I think is worth mentioning is those people that planted wheat for for a deer food plot this past year, and that crop has matured out. That's one of the best dove fields you can have for this coming September, October time period.
Leave it standing.
Yeah,
A lot of people don't like leaving it standing, though. They want to bush hog that stuff down.
Well, and they can. I've seen some doves come to these standing wheat fields, and some people will bush hog strips throughout the summer to spread some of that seed all summer long to keep doves concentrated in there. But you don't have to do that. If you got a good, clean wheat crop, they will actually land in there, because seed will gradually fall off the seed head all summer long, and they can get to that wheat kernel on the ground. They like the shade that plant provides, and also the overhead cover from predators that's flying overhead. But you may have to keep it clean. You may have to spray Roundup, something to keep the weeds out of that food plot, to keep the wheat clean, because doves do like clean ground to land on.
What's some of the other things you can plant? I know we talked about brown top millet. That's right. That's time right now to do that. Is best time to plant it right now.
It is, and that's a great option for people. It's a relatively inexpensive crop to grow and pretty easy. And when it comes to manipulating, if you've got somebody in the neighborhood that would cut it and bale it for hay, that is going to be the best way to do it, because every time that piece of hay equipment goes through, from the cutter to the rake to the baler, it's scattering seed out there, and they cut it close to the ground, leave it in great condition, plenty of seed scattered out there for doves to feed on. But if you don't have a farmer in the neighborhood that can bale it for hay, you can still bush hog it, and that's going to scatter seed. You can use fire We always like prescribed fire as a wildlife management tool, and that's a good application for it. And you can disc strips through it, to provide doves. Doves like loose dirt. They like to feed, walk around in it. So just brown top millet provides a lot of opportunity.
I'd say it's one of the more popular things people plant for a dove field. People who have the capacity to already do big row crop agriculture do sunflowers, but kind of if you're not already set up to do sunflowers, it's pretty difficult to do that. So brown top's a good option. One of the reasons we wanted to have this show today is that, we're getting close to the cutoff. That if you're wanting to have a good brown top millet field for opening day of dove season, you better be making preparations to get that in the ground, because Baker brown top 65 days, something like that.
Yeah, that's
maturation.
Right.
So, we're right there at it if you want to have that ready for opening day.
Yeah. Real quick on the C Spire text line, I have 2 questions. With the 100% disabled veteran hunting license, I seem to not be able to renew on the app. Number 2, instead of paying $5 every year, 1 for license, 4 for card, could we just buy a lifetime for, say, $50? Have you discussed this? No, I haven't, David. I didn't realize you couldn't do it on the app.
Yeah, I don't know what could be going on with that situation.
You
I would
should be able to, shouldn't you?
Right, yeah. I would suggest the gentleman just call our office at 601-432-2400, and it may be that he's got to provide some verification for the disability there that can't do through the app. So just call the office and see what they offer.
All right, what's some other stuff? We talked about last year's winter wheat food, winter's wheat, brown top millet. We're a little late on sunflowers, but what else can you put out there?
I tell you,
Scotty?
for a natural food crop, goat weed, or other people may know it as woolly croton, is a fantastic dove food and attractant. Oftentimes you're going to find it in pastures that are heavily grazed, or it's going to come up natural in disturbed areas like a recently cut over, and it is a fantastic dove crop, and doves will just flock to it, and you'll overlook it if you don't know what you're looking for.
What does it look like?
Good question. Go to Google and look it up.
It's kind of got it's a I don't know.
It's green and white.
It's sort of a tall weed, grows knee high, thigh high, something like that. Got sort of a fuzzy leaf on it that can be kind of a light green color.
Yeah.
I guess the take home though, a lot of people like to bush hog that stuff down, which is not a bad thing to do right before dove season to get doves coming, but you wouldn't want to bush hog it, in July or something.
That's right.
You want to hold that stuff over and leave it out in the field until it gets close to dove time.
A farmer's going to look at it as a weed.
That's right.
But it is a good wildlife food for upland game birds, dove, quail, turkey.
So if you see that stuff coming on here in the next few weeks and you know that's what it is, you may want to keep the bush hog under the shed and let it grow.
Yes, that's right. And, crabgrass is another natural. There's several what we would think of, or a lot of people would think of as weeds, that through bush hog and herbicide or fire, you can manage natural foods for doves.
We're here with Scotty Baker. We're talking about it. Believe it or not, it'll be here before you know it, guys. I mean, it's this summer is in high gear. I mean, it's
rolling
in overdrive. It's going so fast. And we're talking about the WMA Habitat Coordinator, Scotty Baker, with us for a few more minutes. I want to talk about you're going to do some banding here coming up. We'll do that when we come back. But as we said, brown top millet, you still got a chance to get it out. I didn't realize that about the old food plots, because majority of your food plots are wheat and oats, and I guess the oats to die away, the wheat stays, doesn't it?
They'll both be standing there, but if you got both of them in a mixed planting in a food plot, leave them. You'll have some birds attracted to both of them.
A question we get a few times a year is water. If you have water on your dove field, is that illegal? And it's not. It's actually a good attractant to have if you have the capabilities to get some water pooled up, or running water or something like that. If you can float that, no pun intended.
Didn't know that either. We've been talking about getting our dove fields prepped and getting everything ready to go. Right now, a little late for sunflowers, but there is time for brown top millet and some other things that folks can get out there. And we hope that you'll do that. Make sure you prepare them correctly. Now, y'all are going to start banding doves and ducks starting the 1st of July, right?
That's right. It'll be an agency-wide effort that we'll start banding doves and wood ducks. We have an agency goal of both doves and wood ducks, so at least 600 doves and at least 400 wood ducks, and that's broken down by age and sex. And these numbers are handed down, from a flyaway. We're part of a much larger program to monitor dove and wood duck populations within flyways and across the nation. And this is work that takes place. A lot of the public don't know that we're doing during the so-called off-season to help come up with numbers to monitor these populations that go into when we want to change regulations or a hunting season that Adam talked about, the migratory game bird framework earlier. This is all data that we'll use if we want to increase dove bag limit or increase the number of days, or people may realize it's been several years ago, but we got an additional wood duck in the bag limit. We went from 2 to 3, and if it wouldn't have been for states banding wood ducks over a long period of time to monitor their populations, we wouldn't have had that opportunity to justify an additional wood duck in the bag.
I got one from earlier, Russ. This one for you. Will you guys be putting out any more check-in stations for CWD? I think that was a big kind of a quandary for a lot of people. Some of them, they were kind of far away, and obviously now with the new zone and different things like that, I'm pretty sure there's probably going to be some more, isn't it?
Yeah, the short answer is yes. We are still working on all of the exact locations, but the answer is yes, we will have more freezer drive-off locations this season.
I know my buddy hunts there in Yalobusha County. I hunt with him quite a bit. He's now in the zone now. And his closest check-in station's there at Enid or Sardis. Mm-hmm. Which one is it? But it's not open all the time. It's only open there. So I know that was one that if they could just get a freezer there, that would help a lot for a lot of people right around that area. And I'm sure now that that's a hot zone, we're definitely going to be seeing that, huh?
Yes,
probably
there'll be
so.
more in that zone, and we'll have more just statewide in general, but there will be more in that North Mississippi zone.
It's going to be very important for people to continue to do this, for us to continue to monitor this. And it's, we say this too, and I've said it all along, it's in the best interest of you and your family, if you're going to harvest a deer for consumption, to have it tested. That's what not what y'all say, that's what the CDC says and different people like that. So I think that's something that we all need to remember, and it's a service that's going to be there for you, provided by the department.
Absolutely. And like we've said before in many meetings, the way that we are able to get ahead of CWD and win the battle is with hunters. We cannot do it without them. So they have to continue doing what they've always done. Go out there, buy a hunting license, hunt, take your kids hunting, harvest deer. Don't let it change who you are or what you have grown up doing.
And as we said, you've got the abilities and the ways to do that. Scotty, thank you for being here with us today. Appreciate you coming in.
Appreciate being here.
And we want folks to try to get their stuff right, get the fields right, because we don't want Reed and his men coming by there to they don't want to write any tickets. That's not what y'all want to do by any means, is it?
Well, I can't speak for everyone in the field that works, but we want compliance of the law.
Right.
Is our ultimate goal.
And that's because you're sworn to do that.
That's it. And if we have to
write a
issue
ticket,
citation, we will. And if we get there another way, that's good too. But we want compliance with the law so we can make Russ happy, we can make Adam Butler happy, and we can make Scotty Baker happy. and Larry Pugh.
And we want everybody to, and do it the right way. It's also the conservation way to do things the right way.
Right.
And
right.
Look, it's not that hard to do. I mean, it's not like we're not letting you have the ability to get some seed out.
If we follow the rules that the biologists we have working for us set forth, we'll be doing a good thing because they know what they're doing. Mm-hmm. Many times when we're out there working, we hear people that think they know what they are doing and they're the experts, but they don't have any degrees or anything that backs up their expertise. And so we need to listen to these people working for the agency. Follow the rules, and we'll be better off for it.
And, of course, what we're talking about for sure, and we're talking about prepping the dove fields and getting them right. All right, Scotty, thank you for being here. Russ, thank you.
Thank you.
Major Reed, thank you. And you too, Adam, thank you. We'll do it again. How about we gather again next Monday?
I think we will.
For more Mississippi Outdoors Radio, brought to you by the Foundation for Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks.